I got tired of sitting on the ground, so I stole garbage from a church. In several of my previous videos, you can see that anytime I'm building something, I'm crouched down on the floor like a goblin. This is not by choice. I had space in my garage for projects, which was great, but I had no workbench of any kind. Just the cold, hard ground. I kept telling myself that I'd eventually build a workshop, but life kept getting in the way. Work, making a puzzle scavenger hunt, putting jelly beans in a French press, but after the open sauce dust had settled, I couldn't put it off any longer. I began to plan. I needed to measure the space, but I had a problem. My irrational fear of tape measures. It makes measuring things difficult. I'm constantly afraid that the metal tape part is going to whip around and cut off my fingers. To be clear, this has never happened to me or anyone I know. I've just been scared of them ever since I was a little kid. Nonetheless, I bravely faced my fears, got the measurements, and started planning. My first plans were extravagant. Themed storage areas, 4 workbenches, an axe throwing range. These plans left no room for expansion or change. If I had a big project to work on, I wasn't going to have the space for it. So, I started cutting features. No throwing axes, less workbenches, more empty floor space. And I eventually came up with a few designs that would work. To decide on the final draft, I realized that a simple drawing wouldn't be enough. I couldn't properly visualize what it would look like, so I made a very simple scale model. Or at least I tried to, but I got carried away. Did I need to make a tiny functional pegboard? No, but still did. It was fun. Also, I was procrastinating. Even though it was excessive, the little model did help a lot in the end. It made it easier to decide on the final layout of the workbench. Most of all, it made the project feel real.
Hey Nate, thanks for having me in your workshop. It's a great space that you've built here. Wow, thank you Adam Savage, that means a lot coming from you.
Next, I needed materials, and fortunately, for the past several months, I'd been building up a supply. Lumber prices are expensive right now. My solution? Steal from God. The local church threw away a bunch of shipping pallets. A veritable wooden treasure trove. And under the cover of darkness, the heist began. If I could get them into my car, they'd be all mine. And it wasn't until I tried claiming my prize that I realized a problem. They did not fit. At least not easily. They definitely didn't fit all at once. So I was forced to return to the scene of the crime not once, but 3 times to get all the pallets. While I'm pretty sure that taking trash that's next to a dumpster is completely legal, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was doing something wrong. I kept looking over my shoulder, afraid that I was about to be caught in the act by an angry parishioner. So, for the rest of the wood, I gave up my life of crime. I went on Facebook Marketplace and found some weirdness there. You've got your normal things being sold for so little they're probably stolen. That's your literally criminally cheap Lego sets. Then you've got your questionable items, the listings that make you ask, who would want this? Finally, you start finding the listings so weird they have to be fake. Like this B-2 Spirit stealth bomber for an absolute steal at just under $3 million. The weirdest thing though? The listing so enigmatic that I think it's actually real. Parts taken from the Golden Gate Bridge. These aren't small pieces either, like a rivet or two. These are chunks of girders. Couple questions here. First, how do you even get these? They're riveted in place. They don't just pop off. Second, doesn't the bridge need these to, not fall down? Third, how do you even get these? The bridge is a protected historical landmark. They don't just let you take parts off of it. You can't go to the Lincoln Monument and take his fingers. I'm pretty sure someone with a gun would stop you. Side note, I also found folks giving away a bunch of free wood. After a couple of weeks, I had most of the supplies I'd need, so I gave my new crowbar some test swings to make sure it worked, and started tearing apart pallets. Not all the wood was salvageable. Some of it was rotten or poorly cut, and a lot of it broke because I didn't know what I was doing. After the pallet massacre was over, I began to build. I had an image in my head of the workbench tipping over and ripping the drywall out, so I mounted 2x4s to the studs to give me something strong to attach to. Once again, I needed to face the dreaded tape measure. What's funny is while I'm afraid of this thing, I have no problem using a circular saw to cut wood, despite the fact that I've seen 3 other YouTubers cut off bits of their finger using this exact kind of saw. I'm not scared of saws. Just tape measures. And sharks. After cutting the wood, things began to come together faster than I expected. It actually took me less time to build a full-sized frame than it did to make the little cardboard one. With that built, I needed to wire the whole thing for lights, tools, and cameras. I got this DJ booth power strip thing that has switches for each plug. Plus, the switches feel very satisfying to switch. I want to talk about a pet peeve of mine real quick, and that is improper cable coiling. Do not wrap them around your arm. This makes them tangle and wear out. Sad cables. Instead, hold the cable in your left hand and form the first loop. Then hook your right arm around the back of the cable and pull it up to form the second loop. Then repeat the first loop and switch back and forth between the two until the entire cable is coiled. This prevents stress on the extension cord and helps keep it from tangling. Happy cables. Plus, if you ever meet a sound engineer, you can impress them with your sick cable coiling skills. They really care about that for some reason. Finally, it was time for the top of the workbench. I'd been putting this off because it presented a big problem. I needed a 4x8 piece of plywood, and after the pallet heist almost failed, I knew that a piece of wood this big would not fit in the trunk of my car no matter what angle I tried. This meant that it needed to be on the top of my car. The first issue is that my roof rack doesn't fit. Universal attachment my ass. The second issue is that my car also has a little antenna on top, so I'd have to attach the board perpendicular. I had this vision of securely strapping the wood down and going on the freeway, only for the plywood to warp into a wing shape. The lift forces would be too great. My car would lift off and take flight, never to be seen again. Lost to the pale blue yonder. So I asked my friend with a truck to help me out. Thanks, Billy. You should check out his YouTube channel. At this point, I was in the final stretch. Cutting the plywood, putting up pegboard, carefully and skillfully sanding the bench top. And pretty soon, it was all done. I just had to make it mine. There's something special about having a place purely for making things. It's almost sacred. You fill it with tools and inspiration, materials and jokes, all shaped by the projects it housed. It's an intensely personal space that evolves and changes with the people who work in it. And this space is mine. I don't know what projects will be made here. I'm just grateful to have a place to make my own.